Hi listeners, welcome to my channel. Proust said that the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but seeing with new eyes. And today we would be doing exactly that with the Cancer new moon on 9th of July at 9:16 p.m. Eastern Time, which would probably be 10th of July for most of the places in the world outside United States. Sun and moon will come together at 18 degree of Cancer, with moon exalted, with our intuition and emotions being a key beacon of an inspiring change, an inspiring new start that we would be making, starting with this new moon by planting an inspiring new seed. This new moon positively interacts with the volatility that we are in the middle of, which means that this new start can both support as well as be driven by the need for sudden shifts and the need for changes that we are experiencing right now. It's surely inspiring, but it would be challenged pretty soon after, as anything we do driven by heart normally is. It's a moment of support to self in the middle of some very difficult and sudden changes that we are making. Today we will talk of the influence on the personal and global events, along with the do's or don'ts, or rather the questions you should ask during this very intuitive and intimate moment of connection with self. Seldom we are gifted with new moons, which are so inspiring in the middle of harsh changes. So take advantage of it, set some simple positive intentions, and it's a cardinal new moon, so we get on with them, we actually act on those positive intentions. I would take this intimate moment to thank my dear patrons who have chosen to support my work. If you would like to be one, I will leave the link below in description, or if you would like to subscribe to my post to be informed of the transit, you can do the same at a link to a newsletter as well in the description. My name is Charu and I'm your host on this journey. So let's dig in. Sun in Cancer has been through quite a journey to get here. To begin with, feeling incapable to shine in some ways, feeling that we are not allowed to be seen because of the Chiron trine we were having, and being pretty good at inspiring others, but not feeling that we are able to do the same for ourselves. We are very good at caring for others and inspiring others, but in the same moment, we recognize that we are not able to do that for ourselves. And from that moment to being disrupted from norm in some ways, like something is trying to break us out of our own thinking or emotional pattern, or something is trying to get us out of the rut, which could feel and might have already felt very disruptive, but it totally changes our perspective. This comes through normally change in our surrounding or in our personal situation, which you might have experienced in the early part of this month, bringing the much needed change in our static existence and thinking. This is creative personal inner change that you might have experienced amongst the volatility, or even driven by the volatility of the events leading up to this new moon. I was literally pushed out of my house, out of my comfort zone due to jackhammer sound all day long, riling my natal Mars square Uranus to no end, only to reignite my desire to walk, to write, and to discover a new, more inspiring place to do things. Now that soil below our feet has been churned a bit, and Mercury has come out of shadow to become visible, our mind would further be illuminated with Jupiter right after this new moon on 12th of July. We are in this moment driven and encouraged to sow a seed of change. A change that brings the season change in our life, just like summer does, which revitalizes us. Similarly, we are meant to sow a seed that would revitalize us as a person. And that normally new start happens a day or two after the new moon. So typically 12th of July, especially 12th of July this month, is a very beneficial day to start something new that is driven from this need to change the season of your life. Neptune trine is waking our idealism, which gives the kind of clarity that facts can seldom achieve. No amount of number crunching, making a list of pros and cons, will ever get you to see the truth as Neptune does, because nothing seems truer under this Cancer new moon than fulfilling our spiritual and emotional needs, which are way more honest than material ones. Something feels right, something feels like it fits in our world, and that's what Neptune is trying to guide us to. Cancer is an archetype of womb to tomb. So the most authentic parts of ourselves, where are we born from and where will we dissolve? How we were nurtured and how we would leave and dissolve back into the ground that created us. Exalted moon in Cancer is deeply healing, very creative, very peaceful, and it connects us to what truly motivates us from within. It unconditionally connects us to love for self by creating recognition of our needs. We create what we create driven by that recognition of our own needs. Tom Hanks is a 18-degree Cancer where this new moon is happening, and his driver for being in movies was that cinema has the power to make you feel not lonely. There is a deep emotional need that would drive our external choices. And this new moon connects us to that need, that hunger that we have within ourselves, that nourishment that we need, and our actions outside are essentially driven by them. I said it before, Cancer is a cardinal sign. It's not just about drowning in your emotions, which a lot of people connect Cancer with. It's about honoring your emotions and then taking actions by respecting those emotions, by respecting your gut feeling versus trying to bury it. And this new moon comes during a volatile moment when we have been churned up, and in that churning, we have been connected to some of our basic needs. And it could be a move driven by those needs coming to surface. Now, that volatility could have driven us there, or this new move can help us manage that volatility. You cannot do the next season, which is Leo season, without doing Cancer season. Because in Leo season, we are meant to take risk. You cannot go out, laugh, shine, let your talents flow, be on a stage, take life's risk, whether in your personal or business life, love fully, create extension of yourself in a child or an artwork or a business or a passion for another. If you haven't filled your cup, if you haven't cleaned house, if you haven't honored your soul, if you haven't listened to your own self and quote unquote gotten your house in order. Cancer forms the emotional ground that we stand on, and we need something significantly different done there. Uranus and Neptune both encourage us to move homes in some ways, change the things we derive comfort from. Whether it is in food, it is in place of living, it is the people in our life. Changing the place we call home and the people and the emotional states that we derive comfort from. Changing the very emotional state in which we are living our life. Changing the season of our life. Changing the emotional season of our life. Changing our emotional responses to the situations. This comes to support a tough shift that we are making, because you cannot make a tough shift without changing your emotional impulses to that change. This comes to support a tough shift we are making in our life this year, driven by the Saturn-Uranus square covered previously. I'll again link the videos below for you to check by sign, but essentially Saturn-Uranus is being reactivated by the Leo planets in July and August. But how do you go through those changes if you do not have a solid ground to stand on? So this comes to support us emotionally, internally, creatively during a tough shift we are making in our life. It's a no matter what, I got you sort of moment of itself. It's not an external moment, it's a no matter what, I got you moment with your own self. This new moon honors both Neptune and Uranus. It honors both our need for change and our need for soul's love and fulfillment. It's far from shallow, it's not an easy step, but it comes after 2 years of back and forth. We've had 2 years of eclipses in Cancer over 2019 and 2020. So through this new moon, we are making peace with our gut feeling, which actually started coming up possibly in 2019, especially around April of 2019. April 2019 is a critical date to consider when possibly something ended or released, or at least psychologically it ended, or something was shown to you. It sort of was clear to you that something has emotionally ended for you, and it might have taken till the events of 2020 to fully acknowledge that that has ended for you. Specifically, January of 2020 was when we had an eclipse which sort of concluded it. But this has been ignored or compromised on repeatedly because of possibly external demands, logic, worldly duties, old structures of our life and society. But now it's, I don't know, it's like with the volatility, you feel you have to do this. It's like when you know, and then there is no stopping that forward moment. So look at 2019 and 20 when we were having eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn, and we had a North Node in Cancer. Something was clearly driven your way. Something was clearly drawn to you. Emotionally, you were drawn to it. And it would have started around April of 2019 when your gut feeling told you that, either through a closure or an ending or a conclusion, you sort of like, this is something that I'm driven to versus that. And it's clearly something that your soul is driven to versus what the logic of the world or the worldly duties or the old structures of your life demanded you to do. And then that physically showed up physically to you in January of 2020 when you knew that something old has ended and this is the new structure of your life. But it took till now for your soul to fully acknowledge it, to take a step towards it. As the fixed corners of our life, they rattle and sometimes break during this year. Cancer is answer to the question, what can I do about it? What can I do about this change, which seems to happen completely out of my control? Cancer is all about taking a cardinal step in that change. I'll talk about the personal and the global themes now, which happen usually during Cancer new moon. Typically, Cancer new moon brings new starts that are linked to Cancer themes, which is home, safety, security, personal property, kitchen, parents. So if you sort of are reconstructing, for example, your house or something, because Cancer season usually brings changes in our personal situations, which is home, safety, security, personal property, kitchen renovation, parents, the way we parent, the parenthood, small businesses, especially if they're dealing with women and children. In a global sense, domestic affairs, domestic security. Cancer is about security, so taking steps to secure people. Similarly, you might be taking steps to secure yourself and your family. Water bodies are ruled by Cancer. Shelled creatures, fishery is ruled by Cancer. Storage, enclosures, creatives, especially musicians, cooks, childcare, and Cancer is about fertility, so pregnancy, fertility, motherhood, they are ruled by Cancer, and there could be a new start in all of these areas, in one or other area in your life, and in global themes we'll see the same reflected. Food and nourishment are key changes during this time. What feeds you emotionally, because that can affect how you're physically feeding yourself, and there could be a new pattern that we set whenever there is a every year we have a Cancer new moon, but whenever there is a Cancer new moon, we set a new emotional pattern. Our emotional reaction to world's volatile events, they are changed and shifted during Cancer new moon. So deeply personal changes are normally made as a result of all the things that are going around. And our right brain is really activated, so intuition is relied upon. And this can be very fertile time for creative because the right brain is activated right now. Family past is usually focused on, and it could also be our own past that is deeply focused on. It normally doesn't rain, it pours internally and externally. It's an emotional moon. Flooding is possible, heavy rains are common. Any healing or change in reproductive organs, because Cancer rules them. So, womb, breast, hormones, we can experience changes or even healing because it's a positive new moon. We can experience healing in those areas. Water content of the body is seen to increase during this time. Our body retains a lot of fluid in this time. Emotions or sensitivity is high, as this new moon does influence the brain chemistry as well as hormones. Focusing on the country-specific themes, the new moon sits on the midpoint of Sun and Mercury of United States chart, which normally indicates a news about the administration or the president or big businesses in that country. Now, last in July 2010, when this degree was activated by an eclipse, we had WikiLeaks moment, which was the 92,000 pages on Afghanistan war, which were leaked to media. This was over and above the March 2010 Iraq war leaks, which were also indicated by the recent Capricorn full moon. This is definitely an indicator of a new change, a new move, a new birth, even of a media company. Instagram, or the first Instagram post, was made during the activation in 2010. So sometimes big media businesses or a new way of being in media is born during this time, especially for United States. Now, this also activates Australia's chart. In last transit, government was hit by cyber attacks from freedom of expression activists. It's happening around the ascendant of Australia, so we need to see if there might be measures which are taken by Australian government for with the need to protect during this time. Canada is in middle of its Uranus transit to Sun and Moon till 2022, which right now is triggered by the fixed T-square I described separately, which is riling up the moon of Canada. Moon is represented by people of the country, so it riles up the people of the country. Cancer new moon could see some military action or protection measures possibly taken by the state of Canada, because it activates the Mars of Canada during this time. So we could hear some protectionist steps being taken by Canada during this time. And Cancer new moon is emotional time. I would be careful in metro areas if I'm residing in Canada, considering Mars activation, and look out for any power outages which could happen. This new moon falls on the moon of United Kingdom in 10th house, just as it did in 2010. Usually it indicates widespread changes in people's opinion in terms of party affiliation, administration, or which country they belong to. Moon is mother archetype, so when you have a new moon on your moon, usually that if it happens in your personal life, you change the country you live in or the place you live in, or your personal situation changes. When it happens to a country, usually the people change their opinion about where do they belong. So what are their affiliation? We saw this in 2010 when Labour Party's government was ending in United Kingdom. It also started the Euroscepticism, which led to Brexit referendum. So Uranus going through retrograde on Mars of United Kingdom in August will bring volatility to peak in UK, and we could see a build-up of that volatility, possibly with the shift in people opinion during this transit. It can show up in shift in people opinion on Scottish independence, for example, and this can be a tough period for a country as volatility is high at that time when people emotions are high too. August Leo new moon is going to be a very surprising one. So if you reside in United Kingdom, you got to be prepared that there could be certain events driven by people's passions going high and just emotional events happening. Gun violence was banned in United Kingdom, but the last event which did happen involving that was in the last time this decree was activated in 2010. So you need to be a little bit careful during this time, for especially for Canada and UK, I think. I haven't gone into other countries. Happy to look at it. If any of it is interest to you, you can just drop a note below and I'll look at the country chart. Looking at the history of this new moon, because every new moon has a history, a background behind it, and we can look at our own life to essentially see how we responded to this stimulus in the past. And the stimulus in the past happened in 2010, similar to Capricorn full moon, which we discussed before. That was July of 2010 when this new moon was last activated. And it was essentially the nodes came here in January or February of 2010. So that's when possibly a karmic event, a change happened in your life in January or February of 2010, as a result of which you might have started something new, something different in July of 2010, which was more appealing to you. This new moon essentially is a parallel to that, but not exactly same of that. It was also the time when Jupiter was transiting the same degrees it transited. It's transiting right now, so you can see especially January and February 2010 is a very, very good reference point. What changed in your personal life, or what change did you bring about driven by trusting your gut back then? How did you shift your personal life? How did you shift how you feel? How did you shift the season of your life back then? Would be important to see. The issue is that in 2010 we had South Node in Cancer. That change in season of your life that you did in 2010, it was more like a piggy bank of karma. You know, you were making a deposit in your good karma, but not with the expectation of any material returns. But that's not the case right now. So the decision driven by gut or for emotional balance or soul's calling were taken in 2010 purely for soul's comfort, but not for progress forward. Right now, you need to take that step for your progress forward. There were more inclinations still to grow in 2010 by honoring the old structure of your life, because in 2010 we had North Node in Capricorn. We grew through traditional methods. We grew through commercial growth through the traditional growth mode. For example, one of my clients, she changed their place of living in January and February of 2010, which led her to respond to her soul's calling to travel, to see the world. And it also helped her write, which was her soul's calling, but she did not do that professionally. And now she's thinking of doing that professionally. So at that time, she followed a corporate career in parallel to that. So you have to think back at that time what was done, which was purely like you depositing something in the karma's good piggy bank. And now it's the time to encash that and bring that out and manifest that in practical world. And this time is going to be different in that sense from 2010. What your gut told you has ended in April 2019, and possibly January 2020 showed you have been through 2 years of that process of getting to this point. Now you essentially you honor it. You honor your soul, you honor your gut feeling, you honor your personal comfort and needs. And it's also your road to forward movement of material growth. This is no charity. This is no selfless service. Yes, it's driven by emotional needs. It's driven by authentic voice within. But you're responding to an inner calling, which is leading to your practical growth path forward. This is practical nourishment of your outreaching efforts. Now, what's practical? We look at the 𝗖𝗵𝗲 symbol, which represents this. In 𝗖𝗵𝗲 symbol, 18-degree Cancer is shown as a hen scratching the ground to find nourishment for her progeny. It points to mining, plowing, prospecting for minerals. But it's more than that. Why does a chicken scratch? To make a nest. She loves to make a nest. Even if you make a chicken an artificial nest, she will go out and she's going to make a he will prefer to make a nest for himself. This is the process of getting down and dusty. It's called dust bathing for chickens, and for us it's similar, getting all our ticks and parasites out to go through this process. So this is the messy process, which looks messy and emotional from outside, but it's actually a form of purification that happens. So that's why she does that, the hen scratching the ground. She also does it for bonding. We all have our differences, but everyone wants to nurture their progeny. So Cancer new moon in some ways brings people together. The base living behavior, it brings people together. This wanting to nurture, wanting to do anything to protect theirs is a very core at human nature, and it brings people together. Reminds me all the moms ready to dive over each other to get the broccoli during the brief food shortage we had at the onset of quarantine period, risking getting the disease itself. Well, things we do for food and for children, right? So it's essentially a behavior in which you're trying to protect and provide for yours, but through practical measures, which might point to mining, plowing, prospecting for the food of life, for the raw material that is required. Sometimes we are literally finding nourishment for our family here to protect them from the volatility in some ways, to bring them more comfort. We might be nesting in that this time, or we might be creating a practical way to provide for our progeny, which could be in form of creating a house, creating a nest. And I mentioned in Capricorn full moon, which was essentially linked to drought. It's possible that we might be looking for resources as a result of that, and it could play out in the global themes like that where do we get our resources in the drought, which is initiated by the Capricorn full moon. Mercury, Jupiter coming together on 12th of July can help provide some comfort in form of news or information or discussion. Venus and Mars together on 13th is going to amp us for more. We're going to ask to build something more and bold on top of the comfort zone that we're trying to achieve. I spoke of it in the Venus Leo new moon video as well. This next level, but will only come after a tough change. There is a fixed wall we are all hitting, and unless you break through that, we would only reach comfort zone and not all the things that come right on the verge of getting out of a comfort zone. Cancer season is beginning. It's not the end. It's a cardinal sign. It's not a fixed sign. We initiate a change here. The change is not fixed here. It's where changes will be initiated, but the solidification of that change will only happen in Leo season in August, when this fixed wall that we are hitting against, we'll break through that. Because as I said, there's a fixed wall we are hitting, and unless we break through that, we can only reach the comfort zone and not all the things that come on the verge of getting out of our comfort zone. So August is where we will build further on this, where we would go out of our comfort zone to those outreaching activities. And Mars is giving you a good preview of that in July, which would culminate with a very surprising August new moon on 8th of August, which exists at the degree where this new moon is happening, because it's happening with the fixed star called Castor. It's actually a twin fixed star called Castor and Pollux, which are happening. They indicate duality, which is embedded in this new star. Their influences, they show dealing with polarity of human nature and the need to reconcile the two sides of our nature to create a masterpiece, which could be literature masterpiece. William Blake had this star prominent, and he created the marriage of heaven and hell, the unified vision of material world and desire with divine order. He essentially represented hell as a source of repressed energy and heaven as a order and rational thinking. This is two parts of us, two contraries which exist within every human being, and there is a necessity at this time to dig into both sides of us, the repressed energy that comes from hell and the heaven of order and rational thinking. Without contraries, there is no progression. Attraction, repulsion, reason, energy, love, hate are necessary to human existence. But from these contraries spring what the religious call good and evil. Good is passive, that obeys reason. Evil is active, it springs from energy. William Blake. His book categorized people into energetic creators and rational organizers. And this new start, both the elements need to exist. Both the elements need to exist to create the masterpiece. We would need to go to both the stable heaven and an energized hell to get there. This is ancient Greek concept which was later popularized by a German philosopher called Friedrich Nietzsche. He claimed that life always involved a struggle between these two elements of us, each battling for control over the existence of humanity. And that ancient Greece was the highest form of art due to merger of these two sides of human nature. One of god of sun with rational thinking, order, appealing to logic, prudence, purity at center, while the other is god of wine and dance with irrationality, chaos, appealing to instincts and emotions at center. The philosophy being that the art that combines the two, and every human life involving these two fighting elements trying to take control, the two cognitive states that exist in all living beings, you will get the best out of either the human life or the artistic creation when you combine these two together. You need the form and the structure to make coherent art, and you need the chaos, the vitality, the passion for the art to exist in the first place. This is expression of our fragmented consciousness, and we would experience in its wholeness with both sides of our existence being thrown to us to create the masterpiece. That's the Greek tragedy of our life. But no masterpiece is created without both. We would have to go to heaven for order and hell for strength. The star, this fixed star, it has spiritual, artistic influence. It gives us chance to create a great masterpiece of creative nature if we combine these two elements of human psyche. The star creates the best of the works that have ever existed. But the person has to go to both. The person has to go to heaven for order and hell for strength. The star creates a risk of injury to feet, which we should be conscious of, especially if your rising sun, moon, or other planets or points aspect this new moon at 18 degrees of Cancer. Now, this new moon does come with a struggle. It does come with a conflict, not a struggle, but a conflict around 17th of July. 17th of July is when there will be an opposition from Pluto and there will be some power plays that will come into play. I think first thing to remember is under the influence of this new moon, which we would be for the next 2 weeks, we are trying to fill our cup, and struggle, if any, is unnecessary, because Cancer new moon is more about being open to receiving and letting a natural choice flow through us versus struggling to get it. It's a feminine archetype moon and not a masculine Martian archetype. So what puts you in the receptive mood is required. For some, it's surrender. For some, it's releasing a psychological block. And for some, a soulful practice like yoga, swimming, meditation, astrology, or silence even just puts the mind in that moment of nothingness when we are able to let the universe talk. When we are able to let the universe show us what it wants to show us as our plan. The struggle has to cease here, because the struggle is not really getting us where we need to go. The plants don't struggle to extract the nourishment from the soil they grow in. It's not that work is not there, but struggle is different from work. Much of the struggle and suffering driven by it is unnecessary and avoidable, as it honestly just exhausts us. By the time we get what we are looking for, even if we get it, we aren't left with any life within us to enjoy it. Capricorn archetype finds this lazy or inadequate because it believes in karma being dharma. We reap what we work for philosophy. And we all have a bit of Capricorn in all of us. And sometimes we have a person in our life who physically embodies that archetype of harshly caring, efficient, and maybe cold authority of our life. The concept of what we could be if we did not care, if we did not emote too much, or if we spent less time on feelings. Do not doubt for a minute that that part of you would not come to play. It would. And we would feel the pressure of that practical, pedantic, authoritative, cold parent in our mind, or it could be in form of a physical person opposing us. But we would have found, hopefully, our sea legs during this period building up to 17th of July. And that's the work till 17th of July to get firmer in conviction on our vision. 17th July is when we would find all our doubts wrapped up in a physical person opposing us through a power struggle or a fight. Like we need to physically fight our self-doubt to move forward. Observe what this conflict is going to show you. Observe what it's showing you about your own emotional pattern, because it's going to show you a pattern that irrevocably is being removed from this very powerful turning point, which is the point of change of season of our life. I'm not going to cover the do's and don'ts or the process of moving forward, because there are certain very intimate questions we need to ask ourselves. I'll cover that in another separate video, which you can listen to during the 2 weeks. Because the new moon is essentially in influence for the next 2 weeks. Remember that sometimes being vulnerable is the bravest thing we are going to do. And that's what we are being asked to be right now. We are being asked to be raw, to be open to receive what's being shown to us as our plan forward. So that's what I have for you. Hope you have a very peaceful and healing and peaceful new start ahead of yourself. Thank you so much.